All right, well, good morning. How you? You good? Good, cold? Yeah, do you have to walk across the frozen tundra of the parking lot this morning? This beautiful Alabama weather we're having? Yeah, everything was frozen at our house. Doors were frozen, locks were frozen, I was frozen, everything was frozen. So it's been great, it's been amazing. Really good to have Canada down here with us, right now, so it's always good. Hey, before I go any further, I need to update you on where we are with expected generosity. This is the slide. Let's go ahead and show that. This is what I was going to show you, 47,295, but as of the first service, we are over 50,000. So, we did it. Good. Just can't thank you enough for your generosity over the holidays. Just really appreciate it. It has just come to be expected of you. You are so generous, and you love to see us reach those goals, and so appreciate that very much. This money is going to go help some people's dreams come true, that's for sure. So the money will go to our partners in Nicaragua, partners here locally with Esperanza House. Our team will be meeting this week to get those monies apportioned out and get the checks written. And so we're just so excited. It's going to be a huge blessing to them, and we're excited to see what happens as a result of this very generous gift that you have given. Over the months to come, as we see that money spent and what will happen there, we'll have pictures and video coming back to us to kind of report in, or you can just go to Nicaragua and see it for yourself or volunteer here with Esperanza House. Then you can see it personally. But either way, we'll want to see how that goes, but just grateful to you. Really appreciate you. You did good. Maybe it's because I put the word expected in front of generosity. Did that mess you up? Is that like, oh my gosh, what's God going to do to me? No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, so it's a new year and a new you, right? Same you? Same old you. New year, same old you. Okay. Yeah, this is that time of the year where we kind of like set our sights on making it happen, right? This is the year that the better happens. Like whatever we did last year, we're going to up that. We're going to do better. Whatever resolution didn't happen last year, we're going to make this happen. One of the things that I know that we have to change is we got to deal with our habits, don't we? And I got this quote from Samuel Johnson, and it's so funny because I messed up and I said it was from Samuel Jackson earlier in the week, like Samuel L. Jackson, He's not this deep, I don't think. But so our staff were like, wow, Samuel Jackson said that? And I was like, yeah. And I went back to my office. I was like, he didn't say that. Who was it that said that? It was actually Samuel Johnson. Okay, so anyway, let's put that up there. But he said this: the chains of habit are generally too small to be felt until they are too strong to be broken. And when I read that, I was like, ooh, man, that's good. The chain of habits are generally just too small to be felt. We don't know these habits that we're putting in our life, but we're putting habits in, for good or for bad. We have habits built into our life, things that we will do over and over for whatever reason, and they sort of creep in. Sometimes we don't even know we have them, and then one day they get so strong and solid in our life, they're hard to get rid of, if they're bad ones especially. And so all that means is we really have to pay attention to the things that we do consistently in our life, right? And those things that we're doing and if we're real honest with ourselves, we know what the things are that are wrong. And those are the things we need to let Jesus break in our life, right? We need to get rid of those things, and we need to put in those good things that God is calling us to do, the things that make us disciplined and strong in the faith and better relationally and all that kind of stuff, and even better physically, right? Because this is the year you stop eating donuts and Krispy Kreme like every other night. Now we just go to once a week with the Krispy Kreme. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, and we actually put in fruits and vegetables. Remember those? Have you seen those? Heard about those? Amazing what they do for you. You can even stick them in a blender and drink them if you want to. It's great. I got a Ninja for Christmas. That's what I'm doing. Anyway, that's a whole other thing. Running, that'd be good. Absizer, butt guster, roller thing, one of those. Turn this 1-pack into a 2-pack. That's my goal. Have you ever used, if you exercise, do you use one of these apps on your phone? Like one of those like Nike or Garmin, all that kind of stuff? Aren't those so helpful? I have one and it's connected to my watch, and all it does is it heckles me and it makes me feel bad. And it asks me questions like, are we running today? And then I pound it and it goes away, and then tomorrow it says, are we running today? It's like, take the watch. Oh, sorry. Anyway, so we have all that. Now, here's something interesting to me about those apps. This is really smart on behalf of Nike and Garmin and Apple and everybody who does all that, is they made them all social. See, that's a trick. See, they're thinking that if we connect to each other, we might hold each other accountable or something like that. And then we'll actually do better because we're connected with another person who's saying, are we running today? Are we doing this? My watch saying it, somebody else is saying it. Pretty smart. Because you know what? They know something about us as people, that we are social beings, that we actually do want to connect around things that are similar. So if we connect around running or working out or lifting or drinking smoothies or whatever that may be, that we'll actually be better at doing it. And I know for me that when I have somebody else that's holding me accountable, working out, all this kind of stuff, if somebody's going to be there and I don't show up, I'm going to get hounded for that. So it's usually better if I show up when it's 5:30 and 32 degrees, that kind of stuff. But that's the way that works. Because there's a principle at work among us in life, and it's just this, that life is better together. Do you agree with me on that? No, that was weak. Do you agree with me on that? Yes, okay, just want to make sure we're together on this. We're together, see, we're doing it already. Life together is just done better. The Bible talks about that so much and so often that, as believers, the whole idea of Christianity moving forward and reaching around the globe is really dependent on us finding this sort of interconnectedness. One illustration that is sort of in nature that I think kind of helps us think about this whole idea is really in trees, but more specifically in the redwoods out in Northern California. Has anybody ever been out to Northern California and seen the redwoods, personally? Not like me, who's only seen it on TV. Yeah, we got a few. That's good. Those things are amazing, at least what I've seen in videos and documentaries and pictures, and people who have told me. Unbelievable. I'm really fascinated just by the size and the age of redwoods. I mean, those things grow over 300 feet tall and been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. They have survived fires and lightning. Apparently, you look, some of these trees have massive gouges out of them. I've seen pictures of caves carved out of them from fires. You could stand 2 or 3 adults inside that cave. Huge scars up the tree from lightning, all this kind of stuff. Yet they live. Despite the scars that just seem incredibly unimportant, it's like there's so much life in those trees they can't be killed. There's just so much life in these trees, they just can't die because, of their just amazingness. I think about that, and I think about the one tree especially. Is it Colonel Armstrong? Whoever's been out there? Is that the one that's the biggest one, 308 feet tall? Yeah, Colonel Armstrong, I think is his name, named after the guy who found it, which was a good idea. Colonel Armstrong found this big tree. It's the oldest one. 308 feet tall, 1,400 years old. Please be more amazed at that. 1,400 years old. Come on, oh my gosh. That's my response. It's 1,400, a tree? It's like wood. It can't survive 1,400 years. Well, yes, this one did. When Columbus discovered America, it was 900 years old. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I'm so glad you're with me today. Thank you. I feel better because it's really about me today. It is. If you just make me feel good, it's going to be really helpful. So anyway, moving along. So there's that tree, and it's just so amazing, despite the scars, despite lightning and all this kind of stuff. It's kind of like God said, you know what, I'm going to build a tree. I'm going to make a tree. It's not going to be like these other trees. And it doesn't matter how long, 500 years, doesn't matter how many years, who's counting to make this tree. And it's going to be awesome. And sometimes if I take that just to kind of another creation that he had, he said at one point, I want to make a person. And it's going to take a little while to get them where I want them. And so I'm going to give them time. And you know what? Along the way, there's probably going to be some scars. There's going to be some wounds, but they will be insignificant. I'm going to make it so that those are actually going to help them be stronger in the end. I love that analogy right there. And that's exactly what God does. But now here's the thing. Here's the secret to the redwood. Does anybody know what is the secret to the success of the redwood tree? Roots. Their root system is unlike anything else. It doesn't have a tap root that drives straight into the ground. Their roots go out. And the deal is, however tall that tree is, 300 feet tall, let's just say, the root system goes out 3 times that. So 900 feet, those roots reach out. And what they do is they intertwine with the root systems of other trees. There's not a redwood that stands alone because it can't survive that way. They survive because their roots are intertwined and interconnected. And it's been that way ever since they were a little sapling. From the moment that seed starts to grow, its roots begin to mingle with its parent tree, and then they connect for the rest of their life. And it's what allows a tree to grow to be 1,400 years old and over 300 feet tall. Now, when you think about a whole grove of those trees and how strong they are, especially on the coast of West Coast where the winds are 90 miles an hour, some of the most horrendous conditions in our country, I think about the church. Such a similar principle to how God envisioned people in the church being together. That the church would grow, the church would be strong, the movement of the gospel would spread around the world because the people of God would choose to intertwine their lives, that they would depend on each other and encourage each other and pray for each other and kind of do life together to make this thing happen. That's always been the vision of God for his people in the church. And then because of that, we are stronger. And the Bible talks about that over and over all the way throughout its pages. We believe that here at this church. Our strategy is built around three things: worship, groups, and serving. We believe that when we do this on Sunday mornings, we worship together, we're stronger. When we serve together, we're stronger. And when we do life in smaller groups together, where we're discipling each other, holding each other accountable, praying together, growing together, crying on each other's shoulders, that is better. We're better together. Like, we really, honestly, genuinely believe that. That is a part of how God designed us. It's a part of our growth. It's a part of our discipleship. And I said this, I just kind of wrote this down this week as I was working on the sermon. This concept of together or community never seems that important until you need it but don't have it. Never seems that important until we need it but don't have it. Because we don't know what's going to happen next month or next year. We don't know what's going to take place in our life. But I guarantee you, if it's really hard, we're going to need some people. And it'd be really nice if there were people we already knew and we'd already helped them maybe along their life's journey. That's kind of how that works. And so we thought it'd be good to just take a few weeks here at the beginning of the year, just talk about this whole concept of life together. Like just doing life together as a church, in a group, just what does it mean to be sort of interdependent on each other? And so if you have your Bibles this morning, we're going to be in Luke chapter 6, looking at verses 12 through 16. And the reason I want to go to this passage, we're going to talk about the first model of life together. The very first model was Jesus and his disciples. And, I'm always enamored with the idea that the Son of God came to earth and chose people to help him. I don't know why. That concept is just, it is amazing that God chose to do that. He chose to find humility, enough humility to say, we're going to journey together. I'm going to grab some people, and we're going to do this thing together. And he grabs 12 out of a much larger group of people and says, you're going to be the ones. And so we have recorded in Luke 6, 12 through 16, the choosing of those. And here's what it says. One of those days, Jesus went out to a mountainside to pray. And he spent the night praying to God. And I'm just imagining he's praying, God, who's going to be with me on this journey? Who are the 12? Well, morning came, he called his disciples to him, and he chose 12 of them, whom he also designated apostles. Simon, whom he named Peter, his brother Andrew, James, John, Philip, Bartholomew, Matthew, Thomas, James, son of Alphaeus, Simon, who was called the Zealot, Judas, son of James, and Judas Iscariot, who became a traitor. Now, you hate to be Judas, Forever he's tagged. It's like we can't list anybody without him being listed as, oh, by the way, you're the traitor. Good job. So great. So anyway, so we have the 12 here. And to me, I'm like, why do we even know who they are? It could have just as easily been that Jesus said, or the Bible said, he chose 12, he invested in them, they went out and they carried out the mission. But we actually know their names, and we actually know something about most of them. We know that some of them were fishermen. We know that one of them was a tax collector. We kind of know a little background about them. They were all Jewish. And so we actually know something about them, and I think God knew it would be important for us to know that Jesus chose 12 ordinary men, perfectly ordinary. He didn't go get the religious elite. He didn't go get the politically savvy. He didn't go get the brainiacs of the world. He didn't go get this person and that person and sort of pull like the best of 12 of the world together. And he could have, and it would, we wouldn't have known the difference, right? But he didn't. He went and he got these 12, I would even say a little less than ordinary. It's kind of a ragtag bunch. These folks were pretty rough. And actually, they were rejects. Like all of them were Jews. They should have already had a rabbi by this point in their life, because that's what you did. And they didn't have one. So they'd been rejected by other rabbis. And they're just hanging out. And Jesus comes along and says, yeah, you guys who can't make the cut at seminary, I want you to change the world. And so he brings them together and forms this merry little band. And it's so funny because at 2 points along the journey, Jesus calls them basically slow learners and spiritually dense. Yeah. I mean, even Jesus got frustrated, okay? You just got to understand. It's okay, even Jesus got frustrated with them. And so if you've ever been in a group that was somewhat dysfunctional and you thought, this is a dysfunctional group, or you didn't like all the people, guess what? You win. You found the right group because that's what Jesus did. He pulled together the most dysfunctional group ever. And he made something beautiful of it. He pulled them together, gave them a mission, helped them find out who they were, and they started a movement that changed the world. And I think that when I study this group and when I look through the Gospels and I see how Jesus handled them and how they handled each other, then you go on into Acts and see how they eventually found themselves back together again. There's some things that we can learn from this group in terms of what it means to do life together. And one of the first things is that, first of all, they had made a commitment to be together. Because really being together is a decision. It's a choice that we make. To choose to be in a group, to choose to do life with other people, to be willing to give a little for the group, to get something from somebody else. It's the sense of give and take. But they had learned how to be committed together. And it's interesting to me that they even made it. Because you remember, they were with Jesus 120%. Jesus, we're behind you. And then he died on the cross. And they went, oh my gosh, we're not behind you. We're gone. And they disappeared because they thought they were going to die at the hands of the Romans for being attached to Jesus. And then Jesus dies and comes back to life and shows himself to them, and then all of a sudden they find themselves back together. And in Acts 2:1 it says this, when the day of Pentecost came, they were all together in one place. They had all come back together. And I just wonder, what was that meeting like after they had all sort of run and gone back to doing whatever they were doing, some gone back to fishing and their other lives? They're like, hey, how's it going? Hadn't seen you in a while. Yeah, I kind of ran. Yeah, what about you? Yeah, I ran. I was hiding. Well, how'd that go? And then they start thinking, okay, guys, we're back here. We're all together. Let's talk about this. Let's get some facts straight here. We all saw Jesus die on the cross, right? Everyone? Yes. Okay. We all know that he was buried in a grave, right? We all know that. Yes. Okay, 100% on that. We all saw him resurrected. Everybody together with that? Yes, we did. Okay, this is where the spiritually dense comes in. What should we do? It's like, we all saw that. We all know that it happened. Now what do we do? And this is why they were together, because something had happened. They had been through a shared ordeal. And now this compelling shared ordeal had brought them back together at the threat of death still, to meet in Jerusalem, as Jesus had said after he was resurrected. For what? They didn't know. They didn't know what was ahead. They just knew they were compelled to be together by really some kind of crazy reason, and they were just committed to doing it. It reminds me of this story that I read in the news. I get these emails about weird news events that happen around the world. That's what preachers get. You don't get that stuff. Like, I get that because we want to know weird stuff that happens. But there was a group that formed last year in Washington, D.C., and it was called the Quitters Club. And the tagline was, let's give up on our dreams together. The whole group was built around giving up on your dream. Seriously, I'm not kidding. And people came to it. And there was like one lady, she aspired to be an actress, another person aspired to be a dancer, screenwriter, all this kind of stuff. The invite to come to this group said this: most of us have something special that we'd like to do with our lives. At the Quitters Club, we can help each other stomp out the brush fires set in our hearts and get on with our lives. That's positive, man. That's good stuff right there. Well, here's the deal. It was started by this guy named Justin Cannon. And he had been trying to break into screenwriting and couldn't do it and gave up on that one. So then he tried to be a graphic designer, couldn't make a career out of that. And he just, one dream after another he keeps trying to make. And what he realizes is, like, years are going by as I'm trying to make these dreams happen. I need to move on. But he just couldn't do it. And so he's joking with his friends one day, and he's like, I'm just going to start a group, and it's just going to be the Quitters Club, and we're just all going to talk about quitting our dreams. And one of his friends said, that's a great idea. You should do that. And so he left and he went, what have I got to lose? Why not? Maybe other people would like to cry on each other's shoulder. So he puts out that ad. In 48 hours, 35 people signed up. So he's like, first of all, nobody's going to sign up. 35 people sign up. Then he's like, nobody's coming to the meeting because I'm sure they were joking by signing up for this group. He goes to the place, 35 people show up at the meeting. He's not prepared because he didn't think anybody was coming. So he's like, they're all sitting around in a circle looking at each other. And he's like, well, my name is Justin, and we're here to give up on our dreams. And it probably sounded really stupid coming out of his mouth at that point. It's all funny until then. And he's like, so basically we all need to move on with our lives, so we're here to help each other kick the dream to the curb and move forward with our lives. So that's what we're doing. I don't know, maybe we should just go around and share each other's stuff. So they start going around. This girl starts sharing her dream of breaking into dancing. And she's talking about all her life is to be a dancer and all this kind of stuff, and she just can't make it happen, and she's having a hard time. Well, in the middle of her talking about this, another person goes, oh my gosh, but you're so close. Like, I mean, if you just did this and this, you would be right there. Like, I think you should keep doing it. Like, you should keep going for it. And Justin was like, oh. He's like, all right, that's enough of that. So let's move on to the next person. Next person, like, I'm trying to break into acting, and I'm really having a hard time. It's always been my dream, and all this kind of stuff. And as he's talking, another person raises their hand and goes, you know what? I know somebody who can help you. I know somebody who can get you that interview that you're looking for. You don't need to give up. You need to keep going. And Justin's like, what are we doing? What is happening here? And then person after person after person starts sharing the dream they want to give up, and everybody encourages them to keep going. And he's like, what club are we in now? Like, this is not what I wanted. And, it's just the craziest thing begins to happen. And one person said, yeah, here we are at the Quitters Club. We're all encouraging each other to keep going. And then Justin says in the back, he's like, in the back of my mind, I did have a little I wonder if it could possibly happen that somehow we actually do encourage each other to keep going. And sure enough, this thing happened. So at the end of the group, he was like, well, that was great. So we'll meet next month and try to give up our dreams. Or not. Whatever. And so they did. They start meeting. And you know what? They've all started working toward their dreams. And some of them had actually met them. It was the craziest thing that's ever happened. All around this one crazy shared idea. Well, there's that other group 2,000 years ago called the Quitters Club, disciples. They'd given up, found themselves back together there in Acts around this one crazy idea that this guy Jesus has, that we're going to change the world. We're going to share love. We're going to share kindness. We're going to talk about God. We're going to change the world, And here they are sitting there together. The Holy Spirit comes and changes them forever. And they begin to meet on a regular basis after that. And they have a special way of doing it. In Acts 2:42 and 47, it says, they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship and the breaking of bread and to prayer. Everyone was filled with awe at the many wonders and signs performed by the apostles. All the believers were together, and they had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need. Every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes, ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God, enjoying the favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. All built around this crazy idea that we're going to change the world. And how we're going to do it is we're going to keep meeting together. We're going to keep encouraging each other. Apparently, eating is a big part of that. That's pretty much why I love the eating part of that. I think that's important. We're gonna learn together. We're gonna listen to the apostles' teaching. We're gonna do missions. We're gonna help each other. They were doing crazy stuff, selling expensive pieces of property and just giving the money to people as they had need. Man, something crazy was going on there. Not so crazy, right? Now that movement has gone around the world. Here we are today as a result of that. And we're still gathering, going, okay, you've changed my life, and you've said that as a church we can change the world, so that's why I'm here. So I show up at church every Sunday. That's why we want to do this thing together, because there is still a great need and a great vision. And I think the best part about what happened right there is that as they did life together in that way, it says that the numbers continued to increase. People outside this group said, I want to be involved in that. I want to be a part of that. And thousands were added to the movement as time went on because they were committed to being together. That was a value. And another thing that I noticed among the group is that they were together despite their differences. They found a way to be together. They were very different, that 12 at the beginning. It was like, woof, man, this group, I don't know how they're going to be able to make it or not. But Jesus looked at that and said, you know what? Different is not bad. Different is good. And I know, sometimes we can look at people and what's going on maybe in the groups that we're involved in and go, oh, man, it's so different. And we can say, well, because we're so different, maybe it's never going to work. But you know what? Oftentimes you give it enough time. That's what Jesus was good at, giving you enough time and space to see something good happen. Good things can happen. And Paul in the New Testament talks so much about the Christianity, the church, as a body. It's like one body, different parts. Some are fingers, some are toes, some are thumbs, some are noses, ears, all this kind of stuff. He described it like this in 1 Corinthians 12. He said, but in fact, God has placed the parts in the body, every one of them, just as He wanted them to be. If they were all one part, where would the body be? As it is, there are many parts, but one body. Just as He wanted us to be. Some of you are really good at being generous. Some of you are very hospitable. Some of you are good speakers. Some of you are really good at math. Some of you are really good at history. Some of you are really good at, I don't know what, but we're all different. Every one of us in here have been given a unique talent and gift by God. And God, once He changes your life forever, He says, okay, now I want you to join that gift with all these other people and all the gifts together make one body move forward. That's what makes the vision happen. Different is good. In fact, different is better. Now, along that journey with people, I know that sometimes if I get with folks that, you think, oh gosh, I don't know if this is going to be able to work. I don't know if we're going to click or we're going to gel or whatever. First tendency is that person needs to change because they need to change. And we think if they'll change, everything will be better. And then I'll be ready for it, whatever that is. But you know what? Maybe I'm getting wiser with the gray hairs. I don't know. Maybe I get beat up enough, but you're kind of like, it's not so much them that needs to change because I can't change everybody else around me. Who needs to change? Who? Yes, you need to change, not me. Just to be clear about that. I'm good, but I need you to change if you don't mind. No. I mean, the hard truth is at some point we got to swallow our pride and go, maybe it's me. It's me. Maybe if I changed how I view people around me, maybe if I had a little more grace and gave a little more room and a little more space for people in my life, maybe good things would happen because obviously the closing it down isn't working and the me trying to pull the speck out of your eye when I got the log in my eye is not working. So maybe there's another and better way to do this. Maybe if I'm a little more generous with the people around me and a little more open to them and give them time, just like God has given me time and grace, good things will happen, right? I think that's supposedly the way that's going to work. There's an epitaph on a grave over in London. I think it's really great. It's an Anglican bishop, and it has like a long deal on his tombstone. And I guess it's him sort of summing up how his life went. But he says, when I was young and free and my imagination had no limits, I dreamed of changing the world. As I grew older and wiser, I discovered the world would not change. So I shortened my sights somewhat and decided to change only my country. But it too seemed immovable. As I grew into my twilight years, in one last desperate attempt, I settled for changing only my family, those closest to me. But alas, they would have none of it. And now as I lie on my deathbed, I suddenly realize, if I had only changed myself first, then by example, I would have changed my family. And from their inspiration and encouragement, I would have then been able to better my country, and who knows, I may have been able to change the world. I love that. And that's so true. So much of the change we want to see happen around us or in the world or with people, man, if it just start right here, if I can just start with me and what I know I can change, it's amazing what would happen around us, I think. And I think, in this new year, this would be a good opportunity for us to start thinking about that. Start thinking about us. God, what do you want to do in me? Because once I get this figured out and I link arms with somebody else who's getting their life figured out and on and on and on, it's amazing what can happen in a group of people who said, God, help me out. Let's do this thing together. And the last thing is they were rallied around one thing. They were committed to the cause of Christ. In their heart of hearts and in their mind, they knew something significant had happened. A man died on a cross, was placed in a grave, and rose from the dead, and then we saw him in a risen state, and he spoke to us. That is a game changer. That changes everything. And therefore, the disciples knew, because that was true, their whole world was about one thing, the cause of Christ. And we know that was true because many of them were killed because of their faith in really bad ways. But they committed their whole life to this movement of Christianity. And C.S. Lewis once said this. He said, if Christianity is not true, it is not important. If it is true, it is all important. The one thing it cannot be is what? Moderately important. We know it's true. It can't just be moderately important in our lives. It has to be sort of all important, all consuming. And we need to align our lives and our relationships and our hearts and our actions and our words around this idea of the cause of Christ that is changing the world. It is the only true light in the darkness, friends. When we look around the darkness in this world, what in the world is going to cure that? The light of Christ. Well, where do we get the light of Christ? How about in you and me? It starts right here in this community, in our families, at work, at school, wherever you may be. It starts with making solid decisions about journeying with other people so that we can be encouraged and be stronger in the faith. Because the great thing is this movement of Christianity is something we don't have to do alone. God made it that way so that we could do this together. Amen? There's a little card in your chair there. This is something that I've kind of been doing for the last several years. It's a prayer, really a prayer of commitment, a prayer of covenant for the new year of John Wesley. Some of you may actually have some of these cards. I've got one on my desk. But it's just a prayer of covenant that John Wesley and the church prayed on first Sunday of the new year, and just as they were kind of moving along, to say, you know what, God, I lay my life down. Whatever happens this year, I'm committing myself to you. And I want to give you my full attention, and I want you to be all important to me. So if you just want to bow your head and close your eyes, or you can read along with me your card if you want to, either way. Make this our prayer this year as we make these commitments. So God, I am no longer my own but yours. Put me to what you will. Place me with whom you will. Put me to doing. Put me to suffering. Let me be put to work for you or set aside for you, praised for you or criticized for you. Let me be full. Let me be empty. Let me have all things. Let me have nothing. I freely and fully surrender all things to your glory and service. And now, God, my Creator, Redeemer, and Sustainer, you are mine and I am yours. So be it. And Father, today, we all make this our prayer as we move forward into this new year. We bow the knee to you once again and say that we believe in you and we know that Jesus is the risen Christ. And because of that, everything has changed. And following him is the most all-important thing we can do. So Lord, I pray for strength and courage for all of us here, everyone at Cornerstone, that as they move forward, they would make you the number one priority this year. That they would find ways to intertwine and lock arms with others who are on the journey so that no one feels alone, but we're all strengthened and encouraged because we know that we're better together. You've already told us in your word we are better together. It's the only way this movement will happen. So God, help us. Give us grace. Give us vision. Give us excitement and joy about what it means to bring the true light into a dark world. To watch others' lives change because of your influence. And so, God, we give you us. We worship you this morning. And we just say together that we love you. In Jesus' name, amen.